On this episode of Geek Dad Life, we're going to see how the new Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat compares to the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. MOTU Classics versus MOTU Masterverse. Who will win? Hey everybody, and welcome to Geek Dad Life. It's your host, Jay Gladfelter here. I have already done a review of the Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat and intend to review more. So if you like this video and want me to do more like it, click the like button. And if you want to see when those episodes drop, click the subscribe button and that bell icon. I had a lot of fun reviewing the MOTU Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat, but really, any adult collector line based on Masters of the Universe is going to have to compare itself to Masters of the Universe Classics, a toy line that lasted longer than anyone thought it would, well over a decade, from 2008 to 2019. That's a really long time for what was a very niche, online-only toy line geared directly towards collectors. Released in 2010, the MOTU Classics Battle Cat was a great example of what made MOTU Classics so special. It was an updated version of the classic toy, but with modern articulation, paint, and sculpting. It just looked beautiful. It had everything that you'd want from a collector level figure based on a classic from our childhood. MOTU Masterverse is going down a different path. Instead of focusing on updated versions of classic toys from the 80s, it's more of what Origins is doing. Masterverse is instead focusing on the new Kevin Smith-led show that's hitting Netflix this summer, Masters of the Universe Revelation. So I think that's important to keep in mind when we're looking at the MOTU Classics Battle Cat and the MOTU Masterverse Battle Cat. They are going for two different things. One is pure nostalgia based on the original toys, and the other is based on new designs for the new series. All right, now having them side by side, it's hard not to start with scale. It's not as dramatic in the video, but when you have them side by side and you're seeing them with your own eyes, the new Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat is much larger than the Classics one. And I think that's where I have to give a check in the win column for the Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat. I think it scales much better to the 7-inch figures that the Revelation line will be, much like the MOTU Classics line. Again, it's not bad for the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. It looks okay, but it looks that much better with the larger Battle Cat. Next up is the sculpting, and honestly, it's going to be hard to compare to the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. It's going to be hard for any toy to compare to the Four Horsemen when they're at their best, and the Battle Cat is a great example of that. They're great at doing beasts, and just honestly, every single little sculpted detail is fantastic. The actual muscular structure of the animal is incredible, to the actual detail of the fur looks fantastic, varied throughout. I mean, you don't necessarily need it to be flocked because there is so much great detail all over the cat. And then when you look at the actual accessories, they look fantastic, especially in the saddle where there's all the look of a distressed and kind of worn in leather saddle. All the little rivets that are throughout the saddle, as well as his mask, and then all of the ways they were able to just add little touches like little stirrups, as well as even the belt underneath the saddle looks amazing. Has that kind of worn out leather look. So amazing, but really where it just kind of goes to another universe, another stratosphere, is in the head sculpt of the Battle Cat. I mean, it just looks amazing. All of the detail with the fur, the way it kind of looks like it's winds blowing in his face, the mouth being open and just kind of roaring. You can just see all the little scrunching up of the muscles of his face. Really, it's just amazing sculpting, some of the Four Horsemen's best work. Now, again, it doesn't mean that the Masterverse Battle Cat is bad. I think it's pretty good, but overall, it's much softer than the MOTU Classics version, a lot more generic. Again, it's not bad. There's some stuff to like here. I like how they did the claws better on the Masterverse version, as well as I like the way they sculpted his mouth to be able to be fully closed and then open. I think it helps in the kind of duality of this figure being both Cringer without the armor and then Battle Cat once the armor is on. I think that's a really nice feature add here. But again, overall, win easily goes to the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. Next up is paint applications, and again, I gotta give the win here to the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. There's just so much more detail here throughout the figure, on the accessories, on the actual cat itself. Just overall, just way more detail. It looks way more like, a high-level collector piece versus the more toy look of the Masterverse Battle Cat. and honestly, yeah, it's you can just see it here in the video. There's just no comparison. Now, again, this figure came out, over a decade ago, so, they could do more for their money then. But still, in terms of the cost of this new Masterverse Battle Cat versus what we originally paid for the MOTU Classics Battle Cat, the win here still goes to that MOTU Classics Battle Cat. But again, there's something to note here. These Classics Battle Cats are very expensive today, so the price win goes to the Masterverse Battle Cat if we're talking about stuff that you'll be able to buy today. But still, overall, you're looking at a kind of a niche online-only collector figure versus a mass retail toy, and I think you'll see the difference there, especially in the paint application. Next up, let's go to Articulation. I think this is actually where the Masterverse Battle Cat wins out. It's much tighter articulation, and it functions a lot better than the original articulation on the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. The actual kind of pinned articulation on the back legs. Over time, it's a really heavy figure, and they've kind of, it kind of sags, or it's really hard to keep it in a pose position for very long. So that is something to note for the, the old Classics Battle Cat, or really any of the following beasts that were based on that buck. So it's a flaw in that design, especially 10 years later. And to me, I really like the way they did the articulation on the Masterverse Battle Cat better. It's a lot stronger. The joints are hidden a lot better than the original Classics version did. And even though I kind of criticize the the mobility of the head, both with and without the mask on the Masterverse Battle Cat, it's even worse on the Classics Battle Cat. It stays very low. You cannot get that head very high, which is a shame, because again, the mask as well as the unmasked Battle Cat head looks fantastic. But in terms of posing, the Masterverse Battle Cat wins out. And speaking of those masks, let's talk about the accessories. I think, again, I got to give the win to the MOTU Classics because, one, I love the original Battle Cat, and this evokes the look and feel of those original Battle Cats that we had as kids. But it's not only that. I think, in terms of the paint applications, just the wash, all the detail just looks so much better than the Masterverse Battle Cat. But, I do give the Masterverse a little bit of credit here because it is based off an animated series. So an animated series is going to have a much softer look than a collector baseline is trying to show all of this detail and make it seem like a much more premium product. So I think that's something you have to keep in mind. But just for my personal preference, I think the accessories look better on the MOTU Classics Battle Cat, and they actually feel like a higher quality. It's a much more rigid and strong plastic versus the more very rubbery feel of the Masterverse Battle Cat, which I did say I had a concern with the saddle being very soft and how that will hold up over time. So overall, I think the Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat held up pretty well to the MOTU Classics Battle Cat. But if I had to give the edge one way or another, I would still give it to the MOTU Classics. I think, just the sculpting is so much better. The paint applications are so much better. And, the dings against it, the articulation, the scale aside, I would still probably pick the MOTU Classics if, they were priced exactly the same. But I still think the Masterverse Battle Cat is a really good Battle Cat, especially for an adult collector Battle Cat, and the price it is today versus what you have to pay for a MOTU Classics Battle Cat today. So I think, you can't go wrong either way, but I do think the MOTU Classics Battle Cat is better. What do you think? Where would you side? Do you think the Masterverse is better than the MOTU Classics, or do you agree with me that the Classics wins out over the new Masterverse Revelation Battle Cat? Definitely check out some of my other videos like this one that YouTube wants you to check out. And if you haven't seen it yet, my full review of this Masterverse Battle Cat. And until next time, hasta luego and goodbye.